Hello, I just took a Moodle course and I'm going to show you a couple of the highlights of the things I've learned. The first thing I learned was creating a workshop. I used a workshop for a current event article. Students had to research a current event article on a topic, and they had to write a summary and a reflection and include a citation. Then they had to read 3 other students' summaries and answer questions from a rubric. So the first step was to create the setup phase. In the edit settings section, first you had to give a title, then you had to give a description, and I learned how to create a hyperlink that would take students to the rubric. To create a hyperlink, you would highlight the word that you want to create and click the link button, and you would place the URL in that URL box. I checked off students may assess the work of others. Then I looked here, and this breaks down their point value. So they got 15 points for their article, for submitting their own article, and 5 points based off of their evaluations on other students. Here's the instructions for the students to submit their work. And in this box, I would put instructions on for students to assess the other students. I had it open and closing so that they had a few days to do the assignment, and it would close, and then they would have a few days to do the evaluations. I have it set up according to groups, so my college prep kids would evaluate college prep work, and my honors kids would evaluate honors work. I also learned how to create checkboxes. So in here I could have a checkbox for when students actually submit their work, it would check it off for them. One big thing I learned was to highlight the different areas. So once the submission phase was complete, I would have to click the next light bulb to continue on to the next station. It didn't do it automatically, which I thought it would. I really enjoyed the workshop because it forced students to read a current event article, but more importantly, it forced them to then read 3 other articles. It was also nice on the teacher's perspective because it took a lot of the grading aspect out of it. Unless there was an issue, then I would go in and look at it on a personal level and override the grade if need be. But the first time I ran this, not a single student had an issue with it, so it was great. Another thing I worked on was tests, and I used a variety of types of questions. So on their latest test, preview a test here. I created drop-down menus. I created drag and drop type questions for matching. So here's an example. They had to list the stages of stellar evolution, and when they clicked on it, they had all the stages available, more than they need. There's only 7 stages and definitely more than 7 options. So I like that because that makes it a little bit more challenging. This is just a generic multiple choice question. I like the Moodle aspect for tests in the regards that I can put colored pictures in there. So that makes it a little bit easier for the students to see where colors matter. You can embed pictures. This question, for example, they had to select all the choices that apply. So it wasn't just one correct answer, they actually had to have 3 correct answers. I had true and false questions. Here's an example of a drop-down menu where they fill in the blank. Here there are two fill in the blank options. Here's a matching that goes with the diagram, but again, you see there's a lot more choices than just the four correct answers. This was an example of a drag and drop. They had to match the root words with their meaning. But again, there's a lot more answers than there are choices. And last, here they had to match up the words with the correct picture. One other minor thing I learned, but I really enjoyed, was creating QR codes. So I just Googled QR code generator, and there's a bunch of free generators. So I created a couple of texts. So there's the text that I entered, and that gave me the QR code, and I could save and download that. There's a couple other ways down here you can create ones that are more visually appealing. So you can click on those, and that would create a colorful one. This was another generator that I found, and you see there's lots of different types that you can create. The one that I found that I would like to use was one that takes you to a URL, but the problem with that is the URLs that I wanted to use is blocked by my school, so I couldn't actually use those. So I used the QR codes just as a fun little thing for the students to do while they wait for me to get to my classroom. If I'm coming from a different part of the school, a lot of times the students will get to my classroom before I do. So I've started to put a QR code of the day up outside my rooms to keep the kids sort of entertained before I get to the classroom. So that's just a quick nutshell what I've learned throughout the class. Those are the highlights. Hope you've enjoyed it.